Hi, welcome. Have a very special guest, friend / fellow woodworker with me today. This is Paul Deakin. Paul came and took my workshop up in Calgary back in 2008. That's where I met him. And Paul is the drummer for the Grammy award-winning band, the Mavericks, which has their new... They don't call it an album anymore, do you?
I guess not. Well, I mean, we have albums. We actually put it out on vinyl, so...
You get a close-up on that, Dave?
Sure. This album works. It means different things other than vinyl. It's on vinyl and CD. No 8-track tape anymore.
Shoot. I have an 8-track installed in the van.
That would be the hand tool of mediums.
Yeah, man, we actually spin ours, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Paul's an accomplished woodworker, and we are going to spend a couple minutes today talking about using a molding plane. Not a terribly extravagant molding plane. This one produces a little 1/8 inch, or is it 1/4 inch? I don't know. Bead, which anybody sees this work thinks it's the coolest thing. It is actually a 1/4 inch bead. And this is our drawer bottom plane that we use to create the bottom for a drawer. Now I want to explain that real quick. Dave, give me a running thing on the time too, so
Yep.
we don't go over. When you're building a drawer, one of the things you want is to keep the drawer as light as possible. You don't want the drawer to be all the weight. You want the weight to be the contents, or the ability for the drawer to hold lots of content. So, and it's also appearance, because oftentimes, if you want to see an amateur woodworker, you open up his drawers. That sounds weird. Can't back that up, can we?
Yeah, no. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. How do we recover?
I don't know. You don't. You move on.
Yeah. The side of his drawers will be 3/4 inch thick stock with the name of the hardware stamped on the side. And it really is amateurish. So I encourage you, when you build drawers, to get those drawer sides down nice and thin. Mm-hmm. Make it nice and light. And the way you compensate is you dovetail front and back. So by that being dovetail front and back, there's no way that drawer side is ever going to cup or move at all. It's locked in place. Now, you also don't want the drawer to rack. And when you've got a big drawer like that, especially this chest of drawers we're building, the bottom drawer is 8 inches. So that's a fairly deep drawer. I'd show it if I could find it. Oh, it is down in the bottom. Too hard to dig out. Anyway, big drawer, easy to rack. Well, what you can do to make it rock solid, your drawer bottom, I've got one here, so let me show you. Your drawer bottom is, I like to make them out of solid wood. I just think that there's, I mean, I've made lots of them with plywood, but this is native cedar, which smells nice. You can actually,
Yeah.
and it's nice and light.
Keeps the moths away.
Yeah, it does. I don't know how that worked, but that's what they did it for. Why they did it. Now I keep these down to about 3/8 of an inch, but I've got a 1/4 inch groove going all the way around. So the idea is this: the grain has to run across the drawer. This solid bottom is going to expand as the humidity increases. Wood being hygroscopic, meaning it'll absorb or give off. It'll always try to reach equilibrium with the surrounding atmosphere. As this absorbs moisture, it's going to expand, and as it dries out, it's going to shrink. Well, you can't restrict that, because if you do, you'll pay the price. So we build it this way so that it'll never expand in its length, only across its width. So by having it this way, the drawer sides never get pushed out, which would lock the drawer in the case, but it will go out the back and sneak back in. So what we will do is we'll probably have 2 screws here in oblong holes to allow it to move. But we can glue, long grain to long grain, we can glue it into the front groove. And if it touches, it bottoms out on the 2 sides, then it almost makes it impossible. You can imagine with this glued to the front, and now a part of the front, if it's touching on both the bottom of this groove and the bottom of this groove, there's no way this thing can rack. All right, long story shortened. What we need to do is make sure that the bottom of that groove is the same depth over the length of the drawer side. And when you try to do that on a table saw, the action of the blade is always pushing the board up.
Right.
Which means it's very difficult to get a uniform depth
Right.
You know, you either use a feather board or you end up having to use a second tool after the fact to clean it up. So this little plane, as we cut the groove, it will eventually bottom out on the inside of the plane, and it no longer cuts, which means the groove is the exact depth. So I'll give a quick demonstration, then I'll turn it over to you, and I'll kind of critique your approach to it and see if we can't get this right. So I make these, and if I would encourage anyone that's making one to do it like that, I have a big fence here. The first procedure you will do is, the first thing you want to do in the process of doing this is you want to have that groove with the sides parallel to the face.
Right.
So it's very important that you pay attention to the way the fence engages the edge of the board. You want it standing plumb. If you're gripping too hard back here and too concerned about the blade cutting in the wood, then you tend to overpower this and you'll maybe tip one way or the other. So this has to be the dominant hand in the beginning phase anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing on the opposite side of the plane, pretty much opposite, directly opposite to where the blade is cutting, and I'm making sure that the board or the plane is standing plumb so that that groove gets started square to the face. Now you'll also notice that I don't move my arms. I'm rocking on my feet, which enables me to hold that position. And I'm also keeping the plane engaged in the wood. If I do it this way, pick it up, bring it down here again, each time you got to try to find, you got to reset it, and sometimes you'll end up buggering up the edges of that groove, and I want that nice and clean. So try that, and we'll kind of critique it. And Dave, if you want to kind of film, get some from back on this side so you can watch the body positioning.
Okay.
So remember at first, very light grip back here, concentration is here, and I make sure that my fingers are referencing that plane against that edge as good as I can.
Okay.
Now, Paul, let me throw this in right away too.
All right.
Just like any other plane, when we use any kind of a bench plane, at first what we have to do is register the plane head of the blade, so that when that blade engages the wood, we've already established it on the plane that we wanted to cut.
Right.
So this hand is essentially just pushing forward.
That way.
Once we get into the wood, both hands are kind of pushing on a 45-degree angle to keep the blade engaged and to keep the plane intact with the wood. And then when we get out here, this hand has to back off the downward push, and this one has to push a little bit harder and keep the plane from nose diving.
Right.
And the whole thing has to be done with a relaxed enough grip that you can really be accurate.
Remember all that and be relaxed.
And yes, and no stage fright.
Right.
Now, turn this foot. So I'm like this, a little bit of bend in my knee, and I'm moving. And I want to keep all of this as stable as possible. All right, so I'm looking right down here to make sure that that is standing plumb. Go ahead. And I don't know why, but whenever I use this plane, it always ends up cutting deeper in the front end than in the back end. So you've got to go back and do a little extra work on that back end.
Gotcha.
But it's automatic as far as control of the depth. So.
Butter.
Now, if you plan to make these, Dave, come around here, would you? If you plan to make one, you just keep going, Paul. I want to point something out. If you're going to make one, what you need to make sure is that you shape your wedge such that when the shaving comes out, it rolls off to the side and doesn't get clogged up in the throat. So you can see how that's kicking off to one out toward me. Hold up for just a second, Paul. So what I did is I cut an angle. Actually, I do it on the sander. I cut an angle on the end of the wedge so that as soon as the shaving hits it, it pushes it off this side and gets it out of the way. It's really irritating when that jams all up inside and you got to stop and dig it out every time. So that's the only difficulty in making one of these yourself.
5 minutes.
5, okay. So he's just going to keep on going until he bottoms out and no longer gets the shaving, but he's not there yet because he's still picking up.
Little.
Yeah. Pay a little closer attention to the very beginning, Okay, once you can take a complete pass without any wood, then you know you're there. Now I've got this one, and the other thing too is that I control the depth of my cut with this piece part of the plane.
Right.
So when I made this, let me pick up that drawer again. I'll show you something.
That's what this notch is cut out so that it goes out that way, right? That's what this was about, did you say?
No, this is what this does. The problem you have in using narrow drawer sides is you can't have a very deep groove,
Gotcha.
or else you really sacrifice the strength of the piece right here. In fact, I think I actually modified that plane after I did this particular drawer. So by cutting this down, this was about another 1/16 or so, maybe an 1/8 of an inch deeper. By cutting this down, that controls the depth of your cut. So if you don't want a very deep groove, then you just control it with this.
Gotcha.
I mean, these planes are 45 minutes to an hour to make.
Right.
So if I want one that has a little bit deeper, you just crank out another one.
And available on Rob's website.
Yeah, or you can. We sell the blades too. You can buy. I have the blades custom made by IBC. There's a little bit of a relief angle on both sides of them, so that it reduces the friction of this passing through the wood. Anyway, let's do one more with the molding plane, because this is the one that most people think is really cool. Now, we'll actually do this one up on the edge. This plane cuts a really neat little 1/4 inch bead.
Oh, wow.
And what I like about it is when you're done, you're done. There's no sanding. It's a difficult blade to make. In fact, I don't make the blade. I took this out of an old molding plane, but I'm going to get IBC to actually make up some blades for me, because the geometry of that cut is going to be different.
Right.
It's not an actual. It's not a matter of just taking a 1/4 inch bead and cutting out a piece of steel, because the blade's on an angle. That is going to be a little bit different if you can follow me. But as far as making the plane, I made the plane body. That wasn't hard at all. Same idea here. You want to hold that plumb. And that rocking motion just makes it so much easier to control.
Right. You're not fatigued. You're making a...
Well, yeah, if you've got several hundred feet of this to do. Now that cut is a little bit heavy, and it may not leave you the best surface, so you may have to go in and retract the blade. But there's a balance to be had. I don't want to have to make 50 passes in order to form this bead.
2 minutes.
And there's no forgiveness on that, right, Dave?
No.
We're out.
No forgiveness. No going over.
It's like a plane and a jig all in one.
Yeah. Now this one bottoms out when this part of the board references off of this face. Yeah, so it's nice because it gives you your bead is going to be the exact same depth. So if you're putting a bead on the inside of your case, which means you'd have a mitered edge, you want that bead to line up where the two pieces are mitered, but it gives you a nice clean bead. Dave, come back here and just get a shot right here on the profile.
Actually make that a drawer front, couldn't you?
There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it, and it's nice on a drawer front because you can actually then break up the joint where the drawer meets the case.
Exactly.
And to set them or to release the blade, you just got to give a whack. I hold my thumb right here so that the wedge doesn't go flying, but just a stiff whack on the back, and then that comes out.
30 seconds.
And to sharpen that, you don't want to change the profile. You simply go in and you hone the face.
On the face.
Anyway.
Great.
All right, that's it for today as far as molding planes. In fact, if you want to see how to make the plane, we did that as part of, which was it, Dave? The drawer making? The chest of drawers on the Power Tool Workshop. That's when we stopped and did it, right?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, become a member of our Power Tool online workshop.
And go see the Mavericks in concert.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you,
All right.
Rob.
Thanks. Appreciate you stopping in, Paul.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
That's it.
All right. We'll see you next time.